Welcome back to another episode of Meet Cute, where we explore the stories of extraordinary people with radical meat-based beliefs. I'm your host, Alex Rhodes. Dr. Kiltz, what a pleasure to have you on today. You are such a profound member of this community, and I am so stoked to chat with you.
It is the most amazing pleasure on my side, Alex, because I've been just really admiring all the work you're doing, and this keto, carnivore, animal-based, however you want to label it, is just making tremendous inroads to the health and wellness of humanity, which is so important. And all my years as a physician, this is the game changer.
Oh, I honestly could not agree with you more. But so we're going to start with just tell us a little bit about how did you even come across carnivore, or did it come to you?
Well, I was a standard American doctor for years, and I practiced fertility medicine, and I integrated mindfulness about 20 years ago into my fertility practice. Meditation, yoga, massage, acupuncture, and that was my focus, along with standard Western practice in fertility medicine. And a number of my patients were getting pregnant about 15 plus years ago on paleo. And I'm like, well, what is paleo diet? Because I know Mediterranean, I knew Atkins, I knew Weight Watchers, but I never heard of paleo before. So I was like, if there's something that's going to help my patient get pregnant, I want to learn what that is. So I started reading all about paleo, and I started doing it myself. And now I suffered from arthritis, psoriasis, kidney stones, migraines, bowel bleeding, hemorrhoids, depression, anxiety, and all sorts of amazing things. And since I was a kid, I had migraines and dyslexia, and never knew what was wrong. And I got better on paleo, and then I read keto, and I'm like, okay, here's something else. And I'm a science geek, and I love the research, and I started delving deeper into that. And then all my problems started getting better. And then I was watching some video at one point about 12 plus years ago on Carnivore. And I'm like, this guy was ripped. He didn't exercise and he ate meat. And I'm like, well, that seems magical and easy. And I did it in 1 month. All of my medical problems went away. I've never felt better in my life. And here I am from 55. I'm now 66 and a half, and I'll never look back. And so it really is due to my patients, the community itself, and listening to patients, listening to my own clients, customers, patients, and our community that I've learned more than anything. And so now it's all I talk about is why keto, carnivore, animal-based, and again, integrating faith and food into our fitness and our healthy life.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I honestly could not agree with you more. I think people really miss out. We go over this concept of like taking, people take medication and they're like, oh, this makes me feel better. And it's like, where do we connect? Wow, I am ingesting this pill and it's making me feel better. Where do we connect the food there? I think that's kind of a pandemic amongst our society. So, how has this diet helped you to grow awareness around that?
It was one of those things. My friend Dave died in 2009. My sister Maria died the same year. Dave died of lymphoma, 52-year young guy, healthy as can be. My sister, diabetes in stage 4. And the thing that just stumped me is, well, why would my good friend die? He was healthy. And everything we talked about, fruits and vegetables and healthy diet and lean meat or no red meat, seemed to be like, the scientific fact. And so I was kind of on that same train. And it's like, oh, gluten-free diets, what is that? And celiac disease. And really, we were trained to believe that everything is your genetics and DNA, or you're just unlucky. And so once I really delved deep and realized that plants were never required in our diet, and carbohydrates and sugar, which come from plants, are never required in our diet, that was like, okay, well then what is required in our diet? Well, amino acids from proteins, meat, and fatty acids from animal fat are required in the human diet. But Plant oils are deadly and never required, although they seem to be the thing that everyone's talking about. And I know I grew up with them. And, you need fiber in order to poop, and you need glucose via the plants in order to have energy. And so I just know now that this is a lie, and I can't perpetuate the lie anymore. Not to blame anyone, because all of us are responsible for our own health. Yet too many of us are too simplistically open to whatever the science, the experts, the government, our schools, professors tell us. And I say it's really time that we need to take it into our own hands. And the beauty of the internet, you could Google whatever you want. You begin to listen and learn from some people that you didn't believe in before. And so the science is so simple. You need a lot of air. So you can go maybe 1 or 2 minutes without breathing. We'll say 3. You need far less water than we're told to drink. So you can go days without water, typically, but we don't. And what I learned is that we can go weeks without food. And so I was like, wow, fasting, what is that? And we should be consuming more salt, and because salt is good for us. But, ultimately I was told that salt is bad, and you have to eat like a grazing animal 3 to 6 meals a day, and stay away from red meat because red meat causes cancer. And so we could pick these apart, each one, as you wish. But ultimately, as a physician, I became a doctor to help people. And I grew up in Los Angeles, kicked out of school, couldn't read, dyslexic, my father in jail for a little bit, good thing for him. But I learned through hardship. And through that, I am learning that my job as a doctor is to dig deep into the easy simplicity of health and wellness as a human, and speak the words like you're doing in the open access airwaves, so people can listen and learn and find their own way. They don't have to believe me. They could choose to be vegan, vegetarian, Mediterranean, or carnivorian. But some simple things: eat less frequently, eat more fat, and add more salt. And that'll add so much more to your diet, your life.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So you've mentioned a little bit about your childhood, your father being in jail, dyslexia, migraines. How did that shape and evolve you as a child to kind of get
everything
to where you
happens
are now?
at the hand of God. And that's the great creator for all of us, whether you call it some religion or not, or just you call it Mother Earth or the universe, that's your choice. But everything works in our favor, but we don't know it when we're suffering from it. Suffering strengthens us. And so the most amazing things in the universe happen because of very hard, difficult experiences. Nothing good comes out of easy. And yet the story is easier than you know when you start believing it. But I just remember I couldn't read, and I would sit in a reading group, and I was always in the group that couldn't read, and they'd make you read, and my brain would go all over the place. I'd get dizzy, and I just remember the words would be all over the place. And so my self-esteem was not very good. I wasn't the smartest kid in the class, and I think that probably had a lot to do with sort of fear and worry and anxiety. I would have stomach problems and migraines, and they'd have to call my mom to come pick me up. And I think all those things sort of took me away from sort of normal activity as a child, although I think we don't even know what normal activity really is anymore because we've all been on a deadly diet for so long. But my parents were wonderful people, and my father spent a year in jail, which was the best thing for him. And I would go visit him every weekend with my brother, and it was the best thing. And my father digged deep into the Bible and understanding kindness and generosity and love and forgiveness. And he spent the time for his misdeeds, and that was good for him. But I was in a gang in Los Angeles for a little bit of time as an adolescent, and because I was running on the streets, and again, your self-esteem has something to do with in depression and things like that, and you find ways to find a group that you could fit into, and I did. But through that, I was arrested once when I was probably about 14, and the police officer said, "Jail, or do you want to change it up?" And so he gave me some he was kind, and he was like, what can I do to help you get to a better life? And that was kind of part of the beginning, along with my parents, that helped me sort of direct. I was really good to go to work. I was a worker. I started working at like 13, and I loved to work, and I loved to work to please others. And I think that's why one of the reasons I became a doctor. I love to do whatever I can to help and please other people. And my sister had diabetes since she was 4, and there was a lot of work around the house to try to help her. And those were all the main things. I wasn't great in school, but I was good at math. And that came easy to me, science, numbers. And so when I graduated high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do in life. I went to Los Angeles City College, and I was in art. I was a potter, jeweler. I did painting and artwork. And then when I was 19, I broke my leg, and I met a doctor that inspired me. And I said, gee, I wonder what it is to be that. And all the recommendations of the classes I had to take, I said, oh, I'm in trouble. I can't do that. But ultimately, I persisted, and I did it, and I didn't give up. It took me a little longer to get through, but without the pain and the sorrow and the heartache and the falls and failures, you don't really appreciate the good that comes out of those things in life. And so I keep on learning from that. And it just because you go to medical school and residency and fellowship, which I did, but plenty of times I failed in relationships, and people have died that I love dearly and hurt from that. But I think the pain of those things gave me the power to proceed, but it was always with a mentor, like my parents, professors and friends and family members that were just always supportive, even when you failed. And they didn't toss you away. They just wanted to give you more love and more assistance. And I was always asking, so that really helped.
Well, you gave me a couple of really good moments there, through life that kind of shaped you. So can you, and we obviously know like these are, life-changing moments. And sometimes looking back on them where we are now, we kind of think, oh, that was such a beautiful moment. But I would love to know or hear your perspective of you at that age, going through whether it was being in the gang or whether it was, one of these life-changing moments, what it felt like for you and like what made
Well, I don't know if it's any one thing. It's just a series of things. I think when I was hanging out with my buds and we were on the streets at 2 a.m., it was like part of just what we're doing. We're sort of gladiators in a sense. And there was a camaraderie and a connection and a support. At the same time, we used to play basketball all the time or football on a little tiny grass strip right off of Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles and Hollywood. The ball would go into the major highway street. And, it was the camaraderie and the friendship that just kept us pushing forward in all of that. But I do have a few teachers. Mrs. Hafner in the 4th grade, she embarrassed me in the front of the class when she kissed me on the cheek and gave me a hug because I got the best score on math. And so I didn't know I was good in math. And then Mrs. Mazziota was one of my math teachers, and I was in calculus and geometry and all those things. And she said, I want you to be a teacher. And I want you to begin to instruct people that need help in this. So I started doing that. And then George, I don't remember George's last name, is when I was probably around 13, 14. And I used to work at a boat launching ramp in Newport Beach, California. And so I would get up at 4 a.m. and go ride my bike and go to the launching ramp with George, who opened it. But George was always supportive to me working. And I remember at times that my parents weren't around, and I'd stay at his place, and we'd go to a breakfast early in the morning and go open it. So it was really people who were supportive, even though, as I said, there weren't things I always did right or good that I look back on and say, oh man, you could have done differently. But I look back at them with actual somewhat joy and love to the moments, because in some way it was God putting me out on the training field and making me do 100 extra laps or 50 extra push-ups or pull-ups. It was something to teach me what pain is like. and to teach me what joy can be like. And so I think, again, Mrs. Wong, who taught me ceramics and jewelry in high school, and Mr. Kelly, who was very supportive of me spending more time in college and in the pottery studio. And then when I was in medical school, I would be in the pottery studio. And so, all the things that the pottery was always that thing that I can always go back to. And I make Kiltz cups, and I make plates and things like that. And so I look back at them, and wow, I never think, wow, I wish that never happened. But I'm grateful they happened, and the people I met along the way. And I really go through my gratitude list and my prayer list, and that I look back on all those things as the relationships, the experiences that changed my life. Although at times there was pain and sorrow and crying. I remember getting beat up by probably one of my best friends once and his buddies. And I think I was like 16 or 17 because I was working, and I came home late from work. And it was one of those things that, I don't know, I actually didn't even get mad at it. It was just something that's like, wow, what did that teach me? And what can I learn, and how can I grow from that? And I really think my Christian Catholic upbringing really helped a lot. Even though I stopped going to church and I became an atheist at one point, those were things that kind of changed my life.
I feel like we all go through that point at some time, where we sort of lose, connection to, creator, God, whatever it is. I would love to hear the story of how you came back to that. How did you come back to spirituality after those days?
I was going through a divorce, and it was very hard. I have one child, and it was more of a separation from my child that was the hardest thing. And my good friend Craig, he was a psychologist, but he was also into Buddhism and meditation. And we would play racquetball every week, and we'd hang out and we'd talk. And he began to turn me on to Buddhism and meditation and other philosophy that, as a medical doctor, my focus was on science, and God didn't exist because God is me and all of us in science. And this, this needing to hold on to something that didn't seem real, couldn't fix anything. And, the terrible things happen in the world. It can't be a God. But Craig Humphrey gave me a lot of insight. And as I began to integrate Eastern medicine into my practice, I began to read all of the spiritual texts that those people that were sharing yoga and meditation were learning from. And then I kind of went on this quest to say, okay, why do so many people in this world think and believe and use God as their master in a sense, or their partner in a way? And so I went on a quest to read and understand God. And so from there, I read a number of books, Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and The Three Magic Words by U.S. Anderson. And the three magic words are, I am God. And when I realized that, along with science, to understand the human brain, the brain is the creator of all reality. And humans use the word God to label the thing we all are and everything is. And so I read about Islam and Judaism and Christianity and Buddhism and Hinduism and all the religions of the human world, including the ancients who didn't write about them, but they used them in their other traditions. I began to realize that we're all God. And that solved the problem for me, although my philosophy surrounds Jesus Christ and the Christian philosophy, but it really is similar to Hinduism and Buddhism and Judaism and also Islam. you recognize it's all the same. It's just somehow different labels and language for the same thing. And maybe about 15 years ago, after my sister died, my mom would love to go to church. And she loved to go to different churches. And so I'd take her. And they sang at the Episcopal Church, the Presbyterian Church. The Catholic Church wasn't singing as much. But we went to all of them. And that really reinvigorated my belief in God within all of us. And I think God bless and Shala, Shalom, Namaste, all of our traditions in our world at every level, it's all God. And no matter the bad things, the good things, the right things, the wrong things, it's all God's work. And that's why love and forgiveness is so powerful. And so I would say that I wear my cross, just sort of, it's my symbol. But again, whether it's whatever the symbol is for anyone's religion, I think they're all based on the same philosophy, and I honor all of that. And so I would say that I talk about faith first, even over food. And I use it in my everyday practice. I write about it. I talk about it. And the more we do that, the more I think we'll all come together, because you can't fight. I always say, if you want to fight a pig, the pig's like mud. What you want to do is learn to negotiate and be kind to the pig, and we'll all find our way to a higher level. And that's kind of what we all are, because we all can be pigs from time to time, even though I think ultimately we're all lions.
I know, I love that. And I see your lion everywhere. And I'm like, yes.
It is, and that is
right.
Again, it's all stories we're telling. They're all stories. But the beauty is we live in stories. And if we can all bring our stories of goodness to each and every one of us, and we can listen more. My partner is always reminding me to listen. And so because I'm a talker, and I'm one of those people that likes to butt in before you're finished talking, and I have to remind myself.
Yeah. I think we're all guilty of doing that, but I think that's human nature, one, and we connect with each other through sounds and languages, and I think it's really natural to get excited and want to butt in with somebody. I think that means you're engaged and you're connected. You did say something, you said faith before food. And so I'm curious, how does food play into your faith? And like, where in order do you prioritize that?
What you think drives everything. What you think drives your feeling. What you think drives the food you eat. What you think drives the motion of the human body and the things that you engage in, marinate your body in, right? And so plenty of vegans, vegetarians, Mediterraneans, and carnivorians live a long time, and plenty of them die early. So, what is the right thing in the right way? It's be kind, be loving. That's actually the number one thing we all have to work on. And so I admire vegan, vegetarians, Mediterraneans, and pescatarians and carnivorians alike. And I think if we have a conversation, that's the beauty of it. Whether I'm right or wrong doesn't matter. We're still communicating. And so I do believe that a keto, carnivore, fasting lifestyle is the best. And again, keto is made up, but we know what an animal-based or a meat-based nutritional plan is. But, again, in some way, it's a religion. And so religions are thinking. Thinking is what we call faith. Faith is a belief in something, even though the facts don't line up. And so all you need to do is change the belief in the facts and have faith and let go of the facts and hold strong onto your beliefs. And that's what humanity is. Again, even if it's like a completely opposite belief in yours, that's people's faith. And they'll die for it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I refer to it as somebody's truth. I had a conversation the other day, and we were just talking about when you're speaking with someone and they're speaking from a genuine, place of love, kindness, generosity, really, but anything, whatever place they're speaking from, you can almost look at them and just say, you're right, because that's their truth. That's their faith. That's what they believe, not necessarily that it aligns with you, but that they are right. They are speaking their truth. That's what they believe.
And that's honoring the God in each human.
Interesting.
And the more we can say, oh my God, that's interesting.
Yes.
I haven't thought about that. Share some more. And again, it depends on the biblical readings or that you're reading, but love and forgiveness and love thy enemy as thyself, because ultimately the brain is the creator of all of your reality. So if I'm interpreting their words in a negative way, that's not their words. It's my brain creating the interpretation. So if you can change the interpretation and listen in a way and learn where they've come from, why they think and believe that. I had a conversation with one of my doctors the other day about an unruly patient. And she had just suffered a miscarriage not long ago. She had a threatened miscarriage, and she was being what the doctor considered rude and abusive, using foul language. And I said, well, is it possible that she's hurting and that she's afraid and scared, and we don't understand her perception of the event? And this is why it's so important to listen and learn something about that person. But that's our hardest part, because we're always on fight or flight and not rest and learn via listening. And that's the thing we need to all do. And I think I've learned to get, I'm one that can say that I've messed up many a times where I reacted or I didn't listen. And I want to be better at that every single day. And I think that's the beauty. And we talked about it. I talked about it with the doctor, and it was good to have the conversation, because then he got his words out and listened, and then we worked to support. But ultimately in my business, our patient is important, and the psychology of what's going on is all part of the disease process. And so you did ask about where food comes in faith. Well, ultimately, food is a drug. And so if you're consuming heroin, cocaine, marijuana, nicotine, caffeine, or alcohol, and the interesting part is the majority of alcohol you consume is actually made in your bowels via fermentation of the plants, via the bacteria and yeast that should not be there. We're making our own alcohol. Babies, children, adolescents, you wonder why they have such difficulty? Because they're eating a plant-based, low animal fat diet. They're eating 3 to 6 times a day like a grazing animal. We're hunting animals. And so this is the one thing that our modern medicine has failed to really just step back and go like, is it possible that fiber and fruits and vegetables and probiotics are deadly and dangerous for us? Just the question, is it possible? Well, the answer is always yes, because if you don't know the cause of disease, how could you eliminate one thing over another?
I did have a question. You talked a lot about your thoughts and how they've changed and evolved sort of over time. Do you remember, in the very beginning, what were some baby steps that you took to changing this output, this feed that we have in our head from negative to positive?
I spent a lot of time alone. And in my alone time, I'm either reading or listening to, and sometimes watching some inspirational thoughts. And so it's not something you can do once and be done with. It's like exercise or breathing or eating. It has to be done repetitively, not too much, not too little, just the right amount. So every day I read spiritual texts, and I would say that, James Allen, Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, the list is infinite of those people that have written, Buddha, Muhammad, Moses, all of them, Jesus. I read, and I love to read biographies and autobiographies of those that have we're going to use the word succeeded, but the success in sharing the story of how they went from pain and sorrow to joy and happiness. And it wasn't on a drug. It was on the word. And the word is God, essentially. And again, not the whatever people's religion or non-religion are, it's understanding the power in the word and every word you speak. And so the magic moment, I think Craig Humphrey, when he shared much when I was going through my divorce, separation, and my difficulties 20 years ago, and Craig died of esophageal cancer about 10 years ago, and he also kind of pushed me to understand better about what's wrong with us. And but I would say the most powerful thing anyone could do is read something positive, uplifting, listen to something positive, uplifting, or share something positive, uplifting. I have like 700 Audible books. I've given away 3/4 of my books over time because every so often I'm like cleansing my spaces, and I hold on to those that are like, oh, I got to hold on to this one and this one. But I have a Bible right next to me. I have several Bibles all around, and different Bibles, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, and then I have some of my, because I love good calories, bad calories, the Big Fat Surprise, and I love reading people's books. But the one magic is the listening and reading. And I would do my painting and pottery at the same time. I would be listening to something, and then I'd journal about it. And it's the critical part. And again, it was completely opposite. It wasn't science. I wasn't reading about the mathematical equation or the scientific metabolic pathways, because I even learned to understand that all of that is just our belief system, and it may not even be true. So the magic moment, pain and suffering through my divorce and my separation from my ex-wife currently and my daughter, which was very difficult. And I found myself, wow, why does this hurt so much? And that hurting, I went to therapy, and yet the therapy kept me in the ditch. I finally realized that the cognizant, spending time reading things that were going to build my brain. And for some, exercise. I was a crazy exerciser. But whenever I'd done my 10-mile run or my 50-mile bike ride, I would listen to a book that wasn't a negative, nasty book. It was a book of heroes. Joseph Campbell, another great author. And so I went from dyslexic, couldn't read, to a voracious reader.
That's amazing. I mean, it seems like in your journey, really opening yourself up to, different religions, different views, just having an open heart kind of like led you into this beautiful space of, absorbing things through reading, writing, pottery, doing stuff with your hands, but also, having something in your head that is inspirational or motivational, that is rooted in religion, non-religion, just absorbing everything that the universe has to offer. And I really just think that's such a beautiful
and again, everyone is capable of it. And again, this idea that we're different, we're not. We're all the same. We're all human beings. It doesn't matter your education, your size, shape, age, weight, gender. It doesn't matter. Color doesn't matter. We're all beautiful human beings. And even again, back to the enemies, friends versus foes, we're all the same. And we have times where we're like, oh my God, did I say or do that? And I think back to my time as a gang member, we would just, having fights, and it was somewhat back then in the late 60s, early 70s. It didn't seem like the challenges it is today between gang warfare, but not to say we were good. We did some bad things, and I got arrested, kicked out of school, and had to go to another school. And those are things that taught me a tremendous amount. And I look back at them with fond memories of gratitude, to the people who helped me in the journey. And that's one of the things that we need to focus more on. I go down the list of gratitude to my ex-wife, my daughter, my ex-friends, and my all of these things, even my failures in business relationships and all these things. Somehow there's something great created in all of it. And the world is created in earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, fires, and all of that. Without any of that stuff, we wouldn't have the beauty, the Grand Canyon or the Himalayan mountains or the Rockies or wherever you're in this world. Beautiful things come out of hard work and sometimes loss. Mm-hmm. But ultimately the idea that nothing is ever lost because it all belongs to the universe. It's all one. It's all one.
No, I mean, absolutely. So you have heard the term loss and death and come up for you during our conversation. How were you able to overcome that? How were you able to spin it and look at it in such an inspirational and motivational light?
A book of some sort. A book. Again, this is a very old Bible, but pick some ancient writings of humans. Again, they're all ancient writings of humans. We already know everything is born and everything dies that we know as life. Okay, even a rock, a sand becomes a granite rock, becomes a mountain, but then eventually it becomes the sand again out into the ocean. It's just the circle and the cycle of life. And so my good friend Patrick's father just passed yesterday at 90, a tremendous amount of illness for a while. And part of me, and I said, and he said back to me after I said, well, I'm sorry, but I'm not. Because we know the truth about suffering and we all must die. And sometime in modern medicine, we don't let people die. We try to keep them alive when it's like, okay, like, what are we doing? We're not doing the right thing. And so when we're born, magic, and when we die, it's magic because we're all part of the same thing. And how did I get there? Through suffering. My sister dying, my good friend Dave dying, my good friend Craig Humphrey dying. Both my grandfathers I never knew, but they both committed suicide. My good friend Vinny's having a celebration for his brother Rusty, who died of suicide at age 19 about 20 plus years ago. And so, why has this happened? Because we're human beings. See, we judge the world as good or bad, but it's neither that. It is the world. And so as we learn to live in the world in a way that we accept all things as may be. And the Buddhist stories, or I don't remember the stories, and there are infinite stories out there that the young man falls off the horse and he breaks his leg and he can't ride the horse, and everybody's like, oh, terrible, your son broke his leg. The army comes in and takes all the young men that can go to the army, and he doesn't go, and he's like, okay, good or bad, but the father always says maybe. And so judge not lest he be judged is really powerful. But I always say judge with love. And the more we can do that, the better. And, I'm the crazy Kiltz's carnivore, keto carnivore, whatever you want to do. But it's much greater than that. And we look to lions as prideful, strong, family. And there's a culture to the lions that I think we can all learn from. But, we learn from pigs, cows, and sheep too. But we know that there's a greater purpose for all of us. And exactly when and why and how we die, it's our stories. But I was driving home today, and there were 3 deer over a 2-mile area that were dead on the side of the road from being hit by cars because there's so many deers in our upstate area. And yet somehow that's all part of the cycle. And, that's the part we don't understand. And maybe humans, we try to manipulate things maybe a little too much. And maybe we can step back a little bit and go slower. Allow the cows to graze on the greater percent of grasslands that we can bring back, and maybe we can reduce the amount of agriculture that we all somehow need, and we can find ways to make peace with our enemies a little bit better.
That kind of sparks my interest. You have gone through this life of a lot of traumatic history, even revolving around death. But I find it interesting that now, you're a fertility doctor, so you work hard to help bring life into this world. And so it's clear that you really support, that cycle of life. How how did you get into fertility? You know, what piqued your interest in that specifically?
I went to UC Davis for medical school and thought I wanted to go into family practice. And then my first rotation in my third year was OB/GYN, and I just loved the magic of delivering a baby. And so I wanted to know more. I loved surgery. I loved working with my hands. I loved primary care. And so ultimately I found myself doing OB/GYN. I did a year of internal medicine, then went to OB/GYN, and then I practiced for a year in Northern California, Kaiser and Roseville. And Dr. Kurt Klooster was doing a bunch of fertility stuff, basic stuff, but still stuff. And I really learned from him, and I loved it. And I went to Los Angeles to do a fellowship in reproductive endocrinology, loved it. I practiced for a couple of years in Northern California, but I was kind of done with California by then. I had a young daughter, and I moved to upstate New York, and I loved doing OB/GYN and fertility. And I started my own practice. And I'm in this little town in upstate New York called Skaneateles. I live on a lake. I practice in Syracuse mostly. But over the years, I've been doing this now since 1995. I've now in Syracuse, Albany, Rochester, Buffalo, Sarasota, Florida, Atlanta, Colorado Springs. I mean, I've built a large fertility practice, which turns out to be the most affordable IVF center in America, and we've been integrating Eastern and Western medicine for years. And so I just found that the fertility area encompasses everything about life. And what's interesting, the carnivore and faith really helped me fix a lot of this, but I still see a lot of death. Unfortunately, young, pregnant, or soon to be pregnant or not pregnant moms dying. It's terrible. The maternal mortality rate is going up, and we need to do something about it. But I'm seeing a lot of miscarriages and failed implantations, and I relate it to our completely unhealthy lifestyle that we label as healthy as physicians and scientists. And so, again, I got into this a little bit on a fluke because it was what I was presented with in my first year of third year of medical school. And I love the aspects of it, and I see the suffering. And there's so much suffering in this world when it comes to moms or moms to be, or hopeful moms to be, I should say. And, someone says to me, I'm healthy, Dr. Kiltz, but I'm not getting pregnant. Well, that means you're not healthy. That's ultimately we're born to reproduce.
Right.
We're not born to be on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, nor be born to be doctors. Yeah. There's something greater that we're all brought here for. And I think reproduction is critical. And so I still love it. Some days it's hard. I get depressed some days when someone dies or babies miscarry or it doesn't work. And, it's not always easy because cancer diagnosis or infertility diagnosis are very similar in the stress that it puts on people's lives, their relationships. They're simple. Their sort of sense of themselves. What's wrong with me? Why is this failing? And I want to talk about faith and food and fitness, but sometimes I just have to listen and listen more.
Yeah. Are there times in your practice that you've, shared a little bit about faith and food and that, someone has sort of taken that advice and run with it and you had miraculous results?
There are many times where people do what they do and it succeeds no matter what they're doing. But there's many times when people begin to do the practice of meditation, prayer, and visualization and slowing it down. And for many, they begin to do mostly keto, high fat, intermittently feasting, 1 meal a day or less, and add the fat, critical. And then the carnivore is the home run, in my opinion, which is basically little to no carbs, moderate to low protein and high fat. And yeah, I see successes with those things. But sometimes the conversation is, Dr. Kiltz, listen, enough with the food. And I want to know what tests you want to do and what treatments can we do. And I understand that. And then at the end of that, they might say, well, Dr. Kiltz, what should I eat? And I say, okay, you asked. But it is, You got to work with people where they're at the moment, but they often ask me, Dr. Kiltz, what are your suggestions? So I always give them my suggestions, my ideas. They pick and choose. It's like a menu of life, right? That's the beauty. We all have a menu of life. And you choose it, you're responsible for it. But helping people through the pain is really difficult. The emotions and the pain of the emotions hold us back. And when you get angry, sad, and mad, again, those are normal emotions when it comes to failure of conception. What do you want to do? You want to, maybe think negative, or you want to eat things that I don't recommend, or you want to drink alcohol or things like that, which again, most people are working and doing the very best they have with the information they've been given. When I talk about carnivore, they're laughing at me because that's not what the standard American story is from us doctors. And so, we have infinite in our keto guide. I wrote a book called The Fertile Feast, which is about keto and carnivore. And I'm just writing a book called the Dr. Kiltz Keto is Carnivore, essentially. So, helping people find a difference in the way. But, it is talking the talk. I walk the walk. Am I perfect? I do love a cookie, cake, or ice cream from time to time. And sometimes I get mad, sad, and angry, but I'm getting better and better and better at stepping back and taking a breath, because I need to practice it every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you shared that, because I think it's so important too, even in this space, for people to realize that just because we show up every day on a social media channel doesn't mean that we don't have our own struggles. And it doesn't mean that we're perfect all the time either. I know that there are a lot of purists on this platform that claim that they are, 100% all the time, and good for them if they are. But I think it's really important for people to realize that, life is this journey, and that, sometimes it doesn't go as planned. And it isn't the best thing in the world. And sometimes we fail in our diet, in our relationships, in our, workout routines. And I think you really hit the nail on the head with that one.
I have not been in my gym for about 3 days because I haven't been feeling great. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to conserve my energy and slow it down, although I'm going to work and I'm wearing my mask and doing all the right things. And I'm staying home from a major event tonight because I figured I can't contaminate everyone. And I do, as I said, I have my French fries from time to time. I like my ice cream. I love chocolate from time to time. And I think we each all have to find the right place. And we are imperfect humans. The most ardent believer in God, or the faith driver straight ahead, or the purest carnivore, or vegan, or vegetarian, whatever you are, that we're on this curved road, right? It's curving all sorts of ways, and be okay. I do my fasting over 3 days, and I broke my fast after 2 days. I just like, okay, that's, what you did this week and this month and this year, and it's all okay. And, who knows, Kiltz may go back to a Mediterranean diet, and you go like, Kiltz, what's wrong with you? And I love to the dark side. Then I come back to the dark side. But again, it really, you need to be in the community in order to stay strong.
Right.
And it's like going to church every single day. By going to the gym every day. And I call it my motion studio, because I don't recommend exercise. I recommend work. Go to work. Work does wonders on worry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Work does wonders on worry. What you worry about, you can't deal with while you're working. And so, go out into the fields and till the soil, or plant some seeds if that's where you're at, or design or build something. And you have to be passionate about your work. Mm-hmm. And you have to use your work as your purpose. I don't care if you're sweeping the floors or polishing a car. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Yeah. Be purposeful, passionate, and be kind and generous to others. And the more we can do that, the better and better in life. And again, someone's off kilter. If they feel they're off kilter and they need a little guidance and direction, but like yourself, you're sharing ideas that people can get a coach and a cheerleader and a mentor. That is so important for all of us. It doesn't matter that any level of your life, mentorship is important. And just send an email or a letter or a call to someone that you admire.
Oh, yes.
And tell them that you have really learned a lot from them. And is there any way that they can get you can get some mentorship from them? And again, you never ask, it's a no. But Jack Canfield's one that I really love, the success principles and finding some really great pearls in ways to learn the next level. And again, I'm 66 and a half. I learned to fly airplanes 12 years ago. I learned to fly a jet 5 years ago. I'm going to learn the robot in the operating room. I want to learn something new and different as I keep moving in life, because the problem is, even this idea of retirement, my friends, if you're 66, like, isn't it time? And then your brain keeps on thinking, well, maybe it's time. And yet I love going to work. And my grandmother died at 104, my parents at 94. And so I figure I have some genetic longevity, even eating a bad diet. But if I can eat a better diet, it's not the length of the journey, but in some way it's the joy of the journey. And again, it's not built in alcohol, heroin, cocaine, marijuana, or doing things that are highly deadly and risky. Mm-hmm. I go snowboarding still, snowboarding, but I do the medium runs now instead of the black diamonds.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I showed you to my dad the other day, and we had gotten into a discussion, and I tagged you in the story a little bit ago, but it's more of a fun thing to tell you. But I showed him a picture of you, and I told him how old you were, and he was just like, "Nuh-uh." I was like, yeah. And I was like, he's, thriving on this carnivore diet. And I was like, I know that, on our live, we had talked about you not being perfect. And I kind of told him, he was like, I'm going to do it, so that's a victory, a success moment.
And it's the victories and successes that inspire all of us to keep doing it. And people look and they go like, well, okay. And then like, well, I'm going to do it. And I love steak. It's a fatty steak every day. I could live that every day. But the more we share, the more we inspire. And I think as a physician, my real drive is to help those that are suffering at any age. So if I can be doing this at 105 and maybe I'm skiing or not, I don't know, but at least I'm live. And that's the part that, as a physician, it wasn't easy to get into medical school. It's harder today. And, to go through all the trials and tribulations, even today, I've got lawsuits, I've got all sorts of things coming at me. And yet it's all part of the playground. Yeah. It's all part of it. And so it's easy to give up. It's hard to stay in the game. But that's why I talk to people. I call them, ask for advice. This is, I'm inspired to do this. And some days I'm like, well, maybe I should call Alex. I'm not feeling so good. But then, it's like I made my tea. I'm making some chicken bone broth. I've got that simmering. I had a couple pieces of salami, and because I do snack a little bit from time to time, it's always something fatty. But and then I'm inspired to listen to people like you and others in this space that are magically converting the world of healthcare, because social media, and it doesn't require an MD, a DO, a PhD, and ND. It really does require human stories. And, we're all going, so many people read the Bibles of life, and well, who wrote those? People like you and I. Mm-hmm. And that's such an important part. And we want to see our parents and our grandparents and our children's children's children. My daughter's 34, and just turned yesterday, or the day before. And these days go fast. And I want to share the ideas that maybe we can change. And I'm not a fighter against the standard way, but I'm really inspired to share the beauty of a new way. And the more you just show by example is the most important thing.
Yeah. No, it really is. It really is. You know, I think there's so much to be said in this space in general, kind of going back to what you said. It's like when we show up here, you know what I mean? This is changing the world. It's like when somebody just tries, whether it's animal-based, carnivore, keto, it's like they can immediately feel this difference, you know? And it's like so impactful and empowering. You know, it's like, wow, I didn't know that I could have energy all day. And I think that it's really important, you know, that we all continue to share those aspects of, you know, I'm not special because I feel good every day. Like you could feel the same way.
Yeah. And I think it's simple. Think positive about yourself and others. Eat less frequently and add more fat. And stay away from heroin, cocaine, marijuana, nicotine, caffeine, and alcohol. Some of those never, and some of those are far less than you're doing. And we know those things. And get in a group to communicate. This is what I love about the carnivore and the keto world. And I went to Keto Symposium in New York and got a chance to meet some amazing people and keep on meeting more and more amazing people. I probably should just quit my day job and do this mostly because I think maybe I love it even more. But just seeing the successes is so important to me. And I love the surgeries and I love the standard stuff, but I must have my naps. And I think we don't nap enough. Napping is critical at any age. It resets the synapse. I personally eat my one meal and then I go to bed not long after that. But some people want to give a few more hours before you go to bed. And I minimize my snacking. I think too much snacking is not good. You want to rest the bowels. Empty gut is a full life. And the more our bowels are empty, we rebuild, protect the glycobiome. The glycobiome is the mystery area of our body. It's built of sugars, the skin, the bowel coating, the vascular coating, all coatings of our body. Every cell is built of sugar. But it's the barcode. It's the key to entry and the key to exit. And so what we don't understand is we think the microbiome is critical. It's deadly. Microbes are deadly for our bowels. And that's the interesting sort of change that I'm learning. So much of what we believe in medicine is wrong. Glucose is not the energy for our cells ever. It must be fat. But sugars must be converted to fat and amino acids converted to fat. But ultimately, amino acids and sugars are part of the glycoprotein coat that's magical for our body. And without it, we would die. And so, you know, there's some science that's it's still a little hard for most people to understand and believe because it's hard for medical students don't even know this stuff. And they're in the midst of medical school. But what we learn in medicine is a story that may be not quite true, but it's the story to learn, okay, here's the cause of disease. Here's the treatment for the diseases that we labeled, where you know and I know that the cause of disease seems like it's strictly a plant-based, low animal fat diet, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. Well, I mean, it seems like you are in such a beautiful place in life and content and happy. You know, what is, you know, just so people know that we continue to evolve. And another point to add to what you were saying, it's like, yes, you know, eat right, sleep right, you do all these things, but it's like also, it's a journey. Like you remember that it's a journey and that there are failures all the time. But so what's next for your journey? You know, what's something you want to be better at?
I want to be better at communicating this story and the better way. How can the story unfold in a way that people go like, I get it. And so I don't know that I know it yet, but I keep on sharing it. And I think as we share it more, that's really my mission. I love my work. I love my friends and family. I love my challenges. I still have relationship problems and work problems and occasionally bodily problems because just because you go keto carnivore and do all this stuff doesn't eliminate disease. It certainly minimizes and maximizes your way of living, I think. But I love the fertility space, and I love helping people that are suffering from infertility or other reproductive problems. And so CNY Fertility is sort of my baby that I have a great team that helps share that. And I want to continue to grow and help people because we provide an integrative and a more affordable option. But there are lots of great options out there. But we think we have something magical. And sharing the mission of how with faith, food, and fitness, you can build your own better life. And don't have to mimic anyone. Just be you. Dare to be different. That's kind of one of the areas that I think is important in life. And, put yourself out there. And sometimes I look at my stuff and I'm like, well, that was stupid, or, well, that didn't sound right. But I do it in a way like, well, you need to love yourself more. And you need to like yourself more and maybe judge it a little differently. And so, it's always tweaking a little bit. Sometimes I'm loud. Sometimes I'm a little in your face. And so part of me is like, speak more softly. And I always loved Mr. Roger and Bob. Who's the painter with the big curly hair? It'll come to me. People know the guy. He's passed a few years ago, but for years he was showing people how to do nature paintings, oil and it'll come to me. But I watched a movie and that was about him, and he spoke very softly. And he said that wasn't his normal speaking, but he practiced it because somehow people listened better. And I think that's probably the number one mission for Kiltz. Listen more and speak softly.
Yeah, I love that. I know some of the most impactful people are definitely the most quiet.
Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Buddha, Gandhi, mostly. But, he's very impactful. We admire impact in life. And I think all of us, we want to be impactful in life. And I say that all of us are impactful in life. And we have to work to keep working at it. And why some of us die younger than others, that's a mystery. It's all part of God's plan. This idea that we're supposed to all live to 95 and XYZ, it's a story. That's the hard part. And one of the things I believe is that mental illness is all secondary to a plant-based intoxication. And if you eliminate the plants, you eliminate a lot of the depression, anxiety, fear, suicide, maybe criminality. We can all live a better life. And we're shared these ideas that eating a plant-based diet, smoking marijuana, drinking alcohol, using psilocybin is okay, but it isn't. And you wouldn't give it to your child, so why would you do it to yourself? Stop stopping at the liquor store and picking up a six-pack or a few bottles of wine. You might have a little bit from time to time, but you've got to be in charge of you. And all of us can be that. All of us are that, right? No one gets you to do anything. You do. That's why I think I look back on my past and I take full responsibility for all of it. Me. And when you accept the responsibility for everything in your life, magic happens.
Radical honesty.
Yeah, radical honesty. I'd like that. I ask for forgiveness every day, and I go through the gratitude list. That's my 3 to 6 prayers a day.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I think I have one last question for you. We didn't touch on it too much, but I'm really interested to see. I know that women really struggle with warped beliefs around food. and that comes from societal pressures to look a certain way, to be a certain way, full of life, full of energy, to be the perfect mom, to be the perfect wife, so on and so forth. How is that on the men's side? Do you see the same struggles, and how do you address them yourself?
All of us are struggling with who and what we are. We look ourselves in the mirror and we don't love ourselves. We're working to emulate and look like something else. And I say, look in the mirror and love that magic human being right there, the goddess, the God. And so the struggle is to love and accept who you are, but don't use the labels that someone else is using. Use your own labels. I love this perfect, amazing human body. I love your past. I love what you've experienced. I love you. It's the mirror work. And so men and women, young and old, doesn't matter who you are, the only thing that you're really experiencing is the thoughts in your head. Nothing is out there. And I think that was one of the things that helped me. What do I do every day? I do the mirror work. I look in the mirror and I see the God. I got some fat here and there. It doesn't matter. I'm this size. I got gray hair and, maybe you could see a little bit more skin there. That's the beauty of living. Live the life you're living and love the person you are in the mirror, whether you're fat, skinny, tall, short, black, white, yellow, green, doesn't matter, whatever gender, whatever it is, you got to love the person right there because you're the maker of that person. And when you do that, cortisol and epinephrine fall. Serotonin and oxytocin rise. The blood flow to the brain and to the gut is better. And then when you need the fight or flight, you've got the reserves of the cortisol and epinephrine. But cortisol and epinephrine are being depleted because you're thinking in a negative way because you're watching, listening, reading negative ideas that are imprinting negativity on us. All right. And so that's a domesticated animal that you're just listening and brainwashed. So in essence, all of us are the same. You could look at any human being and that they've got pretty much the near identical thoughts. Some people are a little bit better, are taking the thoughts out here and bringing them right over here or up here and aligning them. It's kind of like you're setting the sights, you're adjusting the sights to get to the target, right? And the target is you. And so meditation, prayer, faith, visualization is critical. I love you. Thank you. I love you. Thank you. I love you. Thank you. And then when you feel better, if you have a goal over here, you can get there because you now have the magic of the word and the thoughts in the driving. And so, we all want to be the best father, mother, brother, sister, partner, all of those things. But you must be the best person to yourself first. If you find yourself excessively eating, drinking, smoking, injecting, or any of those things that we know are bad for our bodies, look in the mirror and see the temple and say, I love this temple. This temple breathes and thinks and consumes positivity and love. This temple loves to eat once a day or less. I do a 2-day fast once a week and a 3-day fast once a month and a 5-day fast once a year. I haven't done it yet. It's coming.
Good luck.
Yeah.
It is coming.
It's coming. It's coming. A 3-day fast is my challenge. 2-day fasts are easy. My 23-1 is pretty good. But again, you look at the most magical person who's like the person we emulate with the star and they're so perfect. They're like you. And so if you judge anything negative, anyone, anything, you're simply judging yourself. That's why the word is so critical and powerful. The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, I learned from that one a long time ago. And then all the books Rhonda Byrne wrote that book from. And then I went back for thousands of years to read The Words of Man. And then I wrote a book called The Fertile Secret, where my intention was drive and direct people to the word of positivity in order to get pregnant, deliver a baby. But then now I'm adding all this other stuff in there at the same time. And I hope I'm not going on too much here, but basically, the thoughts in your mind, the person in the mirror is only what you think it is. And when you can master that one at any age, and you can, at 105, you could change it up. I'm getting younger every single day.
I love that. That was incredible. Well, do you have any other final thoughts or anything that you want to share?
I can talk incessantly. And I love the conversation, and we should do this again. But I think each and every human being, and then whether your dog and cat is listening to this too, it doesn't matter. We are all beautiful human beings that are on this beautiful, amazing human journey. If you got troubles, treasure them. If you got problems, open the present. And imagine that it's the gift of God to make you stronger, better. And that's all you need to know. But what you put in the mind and the mouth matters most, and what you marinate your body in. If you're hanging around people and places that you know are not good for you, or you see something over there that is better for you, then get yourself up and get over there today. And the beauty of the internet, oh my God, you can listen and learn from so many amazing people today.
Thank you so much for being here today. It was truly mind-blowing. I've so enjoyed it. We will do it again.
You made me feel better. I'm suddenly feeling better. It's amazing.
Good. That's what we like to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Until we meet again.